Webster is next on BCTV.
Good morning. If there's one service that's important to everybody in British Columbia, it's the telephone service. And you know what it looks like now. It looks like a strike, guerrilla warfare, a lockout, or a combination of all of that. Because it would seem that the people who just can't talk to each other in any calm, reasoned manner are the telephone company heads and the bosses of the Telephone Workers Union. And we're going to start this morning with Bill Clark, president of the Telephone Workers Union. A little later, we're going to talk to two members of the Nishka Tribal Council, who are, of course, on the prod this time about tailings and what is their land from a giant operation up at Alice Arm. And I'm talking about Jimmy Gosnell, can't see the monitor, who's on the right, and Martin Leeson from the Nishka Tribal Council. Then there's a man who wants his pound of flesh. Perhaps not from me, but certainly from Louis Laberge of the Quebec Federation of Labour. And the man who wants a pound of flesh is Jess Sakore of CAIMAW. I think they call it the Council of Canadian Unions, but we'll straighten that up with Mr. Succamore later. First, down to the paranoid, tortured, intolerable relations from the point of view of the public between the telephone company and their union after the break. I'm deadly serious about the state of labour relations between the Telephone Workers Union and the BC Telephone Company, for the simple reason that I'm parroting the phrases in a very strongly worded report from the conciliator Ed Peck. And to Bill Clark, president of the union, he says one thing which just makes my hair stand on end in 1980, and I wonder how much you're to blame for it. In 68 days of meetings of the conciliator, not once did you meet face-to-face with the telephone company. Now, how could that be in 1980, when people are supposed to be sane and communicating with each other during labour strife?
Well, the feelings get so intense that Mr. Peck also said that he didn't see any purpose in bringing the parties together. And it's very frustrating for us. People get the opinion sometimes that there's a kind of an even balanced relationship here, and there isn't. They have a great balance of power, and we find it frustrating because we think perhaps most of the major decisions are made in Hampstead, Connecticut, at the parent company, the multinational, anyway, on major issues. So
you're suggesting that Gordon McFarlane and the local directors do not run the strike, but it's run by the parent company, General. Is it General Tel still?
Yes.
All right, but put it very simply. Why are you, as Peck says, paranoid about the company? What is it that they've done to you this time? You lasted a strike in '77 for about 2.5 months. What have they done to you this time that makes normal communication impossible?
Well, paranoid might be a little bit of an overstatement, but he also says that the company has an over-exaggerated notion of what their management rights are, and it brings on a real feeling of distrust because we can't make a deal with them. Negotiations is, you know, let's make a deal, and we can't make a deal with those people. Now,
okay, what did Peck recommend? Just broadly speaking, Peck came down with the report, right?
Yes.
What did you do when you saw and read that report?
We had a kind of a long, hard look at it with our bargaining committee. We thought it was not everything we wanted, a kind of a middle-of-the-road thing, but we couldn't reject it. We didn't think anybody could reject it. It was so well written, but the company rejected it. Our members accepted it, 91% ratification vote, and the company just turned it down.
All right, in the course of that vote of yours, did the company attempt, I'm giving you a leading question, to push you a little bit further and say that they wanted their final offer put to the vote as well?
Yes, they wanted to put, they wanted us to put their final offer to the membership, and their final offer was the PEC report with our half gone.
Maybe the company can't afford it. Maybe the company is very reasonably holding the line because on September the 30th, a rate increase comes up for, on the profit formula to 6% on their investment. Now, maybe they can't afford it. What can you tell me about that from your research?
Not possible. In 1979, their profits were $52 million, up 48% over the year before. And for the first 2 quarters of 1980, their margin of profit was up 12%, and the national average was somewhere around 9%. And in utilities, Bell Canada was down 45%. And you can look at that in August the 16th to 18th of the Financial Post.
You're telling me Bell Canada was way down and BC Tel was way up?
BC Tel was about 3% over the national average in their increased margin of profit.
And they made $51 million net after taxes, or $51 million gross income?
51 net for yeah.
Well, now, as an innocent member of the public who relies very much on the telephone for a living, surely I can sit back cynically and say, it doesn't matter what you people settle for anyway, they'll get the rate increase, and business and the resident phone people will pay for the damn thing.
I would think so, yes.
How much do they want of an increase this time?
I think 12.5% on most of the residential and 15% on business.
Right, what will it take to get you together now? Oh, first of all, the CRTC hearings on the rate increase on September the 30th.
Yes.
Which is not very far away from here. What are you going to do, pack the meetings?
We're going to call a lot of witnesses on what we perceive to be the waste of Canadian money. We're not opposed to them getting a rate increase. They're a business like anybody else, but we suspect that most of it's been shoveling off into the United States, buying technology that's not necessary in the next 4 or 5 years. It may be in the next 30 years.
You say they shouldn't be going for big borrowings right now to update the phone company yet?
Right. During a kind of a recession in the rest of North America, they have applied for a rate increase that's going to increase their return on investment by about $100 million over the next 2 years, and then go to the market to spend $650 million over the next 2 years. And
Okay.
doesn't seem to make sense.
I said at the beginning it's either going to be a strike, guerrilla warfare, a lockout, or a combination of whatever. What have you done in the way of job action up to now?
Okay, our position is clearly this, that the company has rejected now 3 third-party recommendations in a row, and every time we get into a big dust-up, it doesn't matter who starts it. Once we're into it, we get blamed, and the people of British Columbia start hassling us about our activities. So what we've done this time is pulled 530 people off in the commercial sector in the metropolitan area to try and bring about an agreement, and that's as far as we're going. The company has rejected the PEC report. If there is an industry-wide lockout, they'll have to do it, not us. We've accepted the PEC report. We can't do any more than that.
Are you, is this withdrawal of 530 people legal or illegal?
Legal.
You've taken a strike vote?
Yep.
How many members do you have?
We're not taking a strike vote. We have 11,000 members. We've told these people to report to work every day and to take care of any emergency services that the management people that are working can't handle. And we'll just sit there as long as they need us, but we'll sit there till we get a collective agreement.
Now, in other words, the rejection of... No, you accepted the PEC report.
Yes, we accepted it.
What's your authority to go and work stoppages, which you're doing now in certain areas? What's your authority legally?
Oh, well, under our Constitution, as the Executive Council can give approval to do limited and controlled things like this without an industry-wide vote.
Well, of course, I mustn't forget that you are a federal CLRB union. You're a national. You come under the
Yes.
National Labour Board,
Yes.
and not under the BC Labour Board.
Yeah, we don't have, there's no requirement for a strike vote, or there's no picketing legislation under Part 5 of the Canada Labour Code.
So you're free to withdraw your services at certain stages of your constitution and negotiations.
Well, we have to wait until 7 days after Mr. Peck's recommendations were returned to us by the minister, and then either side is free to do what they will.
They're similarly free if they wish to lock you out.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to be snarky, but they managed very well, thank you very much, during 2.5 months of a strike in 1977, didn't they?
Well, we'll have to see how they manage without these 530 people working.
How can they manage so well? Because last time when you were all out, they still managed.
I think that major corporations and businesses around town now that rely on communications were not all that happy after that 3-month lockout because they don't do installations and they don't do major construction, and everybody else is put behind 3 months as well as the rest of them. And I think they didn't get out of it as light as they'd like to say they did.
Well, they must, what's the proportion of supervisors and management to workers?
About 1 non-worker to every 3.5 workers.
In other words, they can maintain the normal phone service even if they make enemies among business or among residential customers.
Oh, if they're willing to take on the public and make enemies, they can do it because there won't be any installation work done.
Bill Clark, President of the Telephone Workers Union, and Webster, after the break. To Bill Clark, President of the Telephone Workers Union, I didn't realize that you had such a kind of old-fashioned but free labor relations system between the two of you. No picketing regulations. You don't have to have a strike vote as long as you know you've got the union with you. Mm-hmm. And you voted 91% to accept the PEC formula.
That's correct.
All right, now, just pretend I'm McFarlane of the telephone company. What's wrong with me? What have I done that's really bad?
Well, I don't know that there's anything wrong with Gordon McFarland or anybody else.
You represent the phone company.
Well, there's a philosophy built in there, and we're very suspect that they're just what we refer to, I guess, as a miniature replica of a very bad labor relations policy at Gentel in the United States.
You're not suggesting anybody's trying to smash a union. You can't smash unions nowadays.
Well, they've had some pretty good runs at it. Gentel in the United States has really been harsh on the IBEW and the big communication workers of America there, and successful at it because they don't have any anti-scab laws or anything in the States.
Well, you have anti-scab laws, or do you have anti-scab laws as far as the CLRB is concerned?
Well, yeah, the BC code would apply there.
Oh, it applies when it's useful.
Yeah, well, no, when the federal code is silent, we also appear before the BC Labor Relations Board on picketing issues because there's no picketing here.
Okay, BC Tel offered you 7% in 1980 and 8% in 1981. PEC isn't that far below, is he? Above. 75 cents an hour in January 1980, 5% in July 80, and 10% in January 81. Is it money?
Can't be, because like if you amortize both of those out like an accountant would doing bottom line accounting, there's less than 1% difference.
Is it contracting out?
Nope.
That was settled 2.5 years ago.
Yes.
You won that battle.
Well, it was a draw.
Okay. Is it jurisdiction?
I would think it's jurisdiction and what they think is their management rights.
All right. What do they think are management rights that you don't want them to have?
Well, it's not a question of whether we want them or don't want them to have it. When we first were certified, the ratio of bargaining unit employees or union people to management people was 19 to 1.
19 to 1?
Yes. Now it's 3.5 to 1. And we've been having an on-running battle with the Canada Labour Relations Board for 12 years trying to get them to supervise their bargaining certificate that they issue, and they refused to do so until the new board was established sometime after 1973. Now, what the Canada Board has done is said, okay, we'll redefine what the scope of your bargaining unit is, and you people go and bargain a jurisdiction clause the same as any other union and company. So that's what we have tried to do, and the company said, no, it's not negotiable.
All right, let me get this. CLRB and PEC both say that you two enemies, which is what you are, let's face it, should negotiate which jobs are union and which jobs are supervisory, putting it in the simplest terms.
Right.
You say that must be done, that's what the CLRB says, that's what PEC says.
Yes.
And they say
no.
They'll decide what's union jurisdiction.
That's essentially what they're saying, yes.
Now, just thinking of all the old age pensioners and people on minimum incomes, are you people well paid? How much?
No, we're not. The CRTC, in one of their interrogatories, you know, where people ask what's wrong with the service, for instance.
Right.
Up north, and BC Tel said, well, we're not paying good enough wages, so people are leaving to go to the oil industry. Right now, mind you, if we get a retroactive paycheck, you know, things are leaving out a little bit, but right now, a warehouse worker in some industries is getting paid the same as the person that installs and tests the computer switchboards around here.
But give me numbers.
$11.15 an hour. Our journeymen are at $11.15 an hour.
$11.15 an hour.
Right now, yeah.
And do you refuse to do overtime now?
Yes.
That's banned.
Yes.
Overtime is banned, $11.15 an hour. If you got a retroactive check at PEC's recommendations, we'll say, roughly speaking, 10%?
I think he said 75 cents an hour, which is less than 7% for a journeyman, and then 5% spread over the next 12 months. No, it wouldn't be, the retroactivity wouldn't be 10%.
But over it's a 2-year contract?
2 years, yes.
Average what, 10, 11%? Well, averaged out, compounded.
Compounded, at the end, it would be 22.6% over 2 years, but we don't get the, it's back-end loaded. We don't get the 10% till
Yeah, the middle
July
of
the 1st next year.
1981.
Yeah.
Not enough money.
Yeah.
You'll accept the 10%.
Well, it's not enough.
You'll
but
accept the PEC report.
Yeah, it's not enough, though. I want to make that clear.
And they won't do it.
No.
So there's no sign of any solution. Not the slightest hope.
Not
What do you
right
hear
now.
this morning from your office?
We heard that the construction crews were locked out at a compound on Schoolhouse Road.
And you don't mind that.
Don't like it all that much, but
But if you're sending men into what to sit there saying we only deal with emergencies, what's an emergency?
hospitals, fire halls, police stations, medical centers,
And you'll decide what's an emergency.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll take care of all that.
Yeah, but if they lock you out, I mean, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, to use an old-fashioned phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, that is an old-fashioned phrase.
Anything you'd like to tell Mr. McFarlane? How anxious you are to meet with him, for instance, and sit down and talk rationally?
Well, we have met with them twice.
Prior
I
to...
think twice since the PEC report, trying to work this out. We suggested that we just sign the PEC report and work out a third-year agreement now to settle it down for a while. They were interested in, I think, in accepting a third-year agreement if we accepted what they thought was the first 2 years. Didn't work out.
Well, you have spoken to them. PEC isn't... Since the PEC report, you've spoken twice.
But Mr. Peck's report is accurate. Well, he was involved. We certainly did not. He's...
Neither one of you would budge. Look,
Well, no, can't leave it on that. We budged. We accepted the PEC report. That's got to be made very clear.
is that Ed Peck,
Yes?
federal conciliator?
Well, he was the second in command of the BC board under Weiler.
And he
now
became a conciliator. He's a
Yeah.
consultant conciliator.
Yeah, right.
And he came down, and it's enough on your side for you to be happy with the report.
He came down the middle enough so we couldn't reject it.
And McFarlane just says, no way.
That's it, yeah?
He'll go for a third-year contract if you settle on his first 2-year proposition.
Yes.
But jurisdiction is one of the big... Is that the biggest sticky point?
Oh, I would
Jurisdiction.
I would think it is on their part, yeah.
And on your part, too.
Oh, yes.
Because Peck gave you a recommendation on jurisdiction which you liked.
And that we were invited by the Canada Labour Relations Board as two parties to the agreement to go away and do.
The phone's working today.
I imagine.
Let's try one segment.
All right.
Now, I don't want... I just want some sharp, simple comments to Bill Clark, or whatever, from union or non-union people, after the break.
Possible.
Didn't you announce something about difficulties with long-distance calls?
We invited a fraternal organization that we belong to around the world to put a boycott on calls, operator-assisted calls coming in and out of area code 604 in British Columbia.
Any response?
Haven't heard much back about it yet.
Oh, the Brits will back here.
Probably.
It's still working here anyway.
Yes.
From Nelson to Bill Clark.
Yeah, you've said that the jurisdiction is the most important. The company's saying that they can't afford even their final offer on the wages. Is this just a smokescreen?
Yes, in my opinion. I think it is
Are
clear.
you a phone worker?
Yes, I am.
Much do you make a month?
$1,600.
Fair enough. Thanks for your call. Are you with Clark or against him?
I'm with him all the way.
Right. That was Nelson. This is Nacusp. Go ahead, please. From Nacusp.
Former telephone employee, it's difficult for people outside the companies who do not work for them to appreciate the amount of sniping that the company constantly does to its workers.
You mean harassment on the job?
Yeah, it's constantly harassing petty, small-time business ways. That's all old-fashioned.
Okay, what do you say to that? Any specifics, Bill Clark?
Sure. A week and a half ago or so, when we were trying to vote on this thing and get it settled down, they brought some clerical supervisors in to sit them down beside the telephone operators to train them to take their jobs while they were going to lock them out. That kind of foolishness.
Give me that again.
They
When
brought-
you were voting on the PEC report,
Yes.
they brought in some supervisors.
Clerical supervisors, yes.
To sit them there,
beside the working telephone operator.
to learn to do the job,
Yes.
in case they strike.
Yes,
Yeah, well, that would be annoying, I must confess.
it was irritating. It nearly shut down the 768 Seymour Street.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I got something to say to Bill Clark, and that is regarding the supervisors. Now, they go in there, and it's obviously the company not going to negotiate in good faith when they get the supervisors sitting back ready to scab on them. Save the telephone company millions of dollars at our expense, the public, because we're the ones that suffer for it. But let me say something to Bill Clark. If you want to win a strike, Bill, you got to bleed a little. You got to bleed a little. You got to stop these supervisors from going in there and scabbing on you, because that's what they're doing.
What do you want them to do?
Stop them going in. If it means going to jail, stop them. Don't let them go through the picket line. Don't train them to do their work.
Mr. Clark will have a response any moment now.
Well, firstly, I don't like bleeding very much, and I don't like to watch other people bleed. I don't know that that would resolve anything. Our position is that kind of, just from a pragmatic point of view, that kind of hard-nosed violence seems to prolong disputes. It doesn't end them, and it makes those lower management people then take sides. What we have done, and this is a commitment, is we've told all of those supervisors if they stop doing our work and just stay neutral, then we won't go back to work until they get an agreement for that professional organization of theirs, and that would end it for all time.
They haven't got one.
They've got a professional organization, but they missed by 40 votes on a certification hearing. We could, if they would stay out of this thing, we could end it and get them a voluntary agreement for a couple of years.
But when they stay out, amidst all that fancy overtime, all the new cars they got during the last strike, when they finished all their triple time and whatnot, and you're asking them to quit right now, and they don't have your financial resources, do they?
Well, if they would stay out of it, we wouldn't need very much financial resources. But on the question of the new cars and everything, most of those people have grown up through our union. Because of the monopoly structure, it's their only job. Most of them find what they're doing very, very distasteful, and
You're hopeful for support from them this time?
Yep, if they would come out and support us, we would end this crazy arrangement for all time.
Thanks for your call. One question, do you have a strike fund? And what do you do now in this guerrilla warfare era? Do you levy the people to make up the wages of those who are not being paid?
That's one of the things that we're considering. We also have a strike fund that would last 11,000 people for maybe 8 or 9 weeks. I think we took a look at it at not very much money a week.
Well, about 100 a week, maybe.
Oh, not even that. But we've got a half a dozen options that I don't really want to talk about on
Right, but
television.
the modern way to run a strike now is just to hit and run, keep your people employed, get your money, and everybody lives through it, and it becomes intolerable for management. That's the modern way, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it.
Oh, no, and it's the successful one.
I'm being
Yeah.
practical.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, Bill. How are you this morning?
Fine, thanks.
I'm really concerned about all the talk that's going on around amongst the boys, especially the situation in Hawaii where a guy got blown off a pole, a supervisor, and just how we're going to keep a lid on this whole thing, because I think the bitterness is higher than I've ever seen it in the company in all my years in the company.
Oh, come on, blowing somebody off a pole in Hawaii. They do that to tourists. They don't do it normally to...
I know that talk is cheap, Jack,
yeah.
but the bitterness within the union and amongst the men right now is really getting awfully bad.
Yeah, I still maintain, though, that that over the years in all of the class struggles that have taken place, that pacifism in the long run has been the most successful. Hard-nosed pacifism, be it that as it may.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Jack. I know a lot of people on both sides of this question, both in management and in the actual working force with BC Tel. My comment is that, one, the Cablevision guys are making more than the technicians at BC Tel right now.
True or false?
And also, if BC Tel if the guys get what they want, all BC Tel's got to do is go back to CRTC and get a rate increase. They're not going to lose money. It's insanity.
You're saying the whole dispute is insanity. The public should pay anyway.
No, not that the public. Well, I mean, we're going to end up by paying whichever way.
Right?
And the company's not going to lose because it can go back to CRTC and get a rating.
I mean, they're allowed a 6% take on their approved investment, aren't they?
10% rate of return, I think.
Was it 6? I thought it was 10.
Yeah,
It's
I
an
think
allowable
10, yeah.
rate of return.
Yes.
And they can get that anyway.
Yes, and that's even an oversimplification. But on the question of the Cablevision people that just string that Cablevision and don't do half the work that our technicians or linemen that have to do, they're making, I think, $2.85 an hour more than we are. Everything that Mr. Peck has given to us, we won't come close to catching up to what the hydro people make. We're a long way behind.
Everybody's behind the hydro.
Okay, Jack, just a point there. My husband works for Cablevision, and I think he's getting 93% of the journeyman's rate, and at the moment he's making $12.51 an hour.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I have a couple of questions. I was wondering what would be the thing on binding arbitration at the federal level, and also about this foreign ownership of a telecommunications setup within Canada that is essential to our security as surely the radio...
The stock answer to that, surely, Bill, is that BC Tel is a federally chartered Canadian company, despite its offshore majority ownership. Is that right?
Yes, it was incorporated by an act of parliament, I think, in 1926 or
What
something.
about binding arbitration? Do you want that? Would you go for that?
No, it's a useless process. All you do end up is 5 or 6 agreements like the nurses do, and then bitterness again. It doesn't produce anything.
Yeah. That's what Hall wants to give the doctors, too. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack. I'm a telephone employee, and I'd just like to mention that it's pretty hard as a working employee to get along with somebody who has the attitude that it's a master-slave relationship. Long before any of the pressure was put on from the union, like the 500 people up, the company was already stepping on you for coffee breaks, lunches, paperwork. And as an employee, I would just as soon sit back in good faith and let the union do the work, but the company makes that almost impossible for you. You get excited and you want things to happen.
Sounds like a young fella. Do they harass you on the job? Mind you, your people are entitled to do a full day's work and keep to the proper coffee breaks.
That's true, but when there's no contract, it's a much more relaxed situation.
Okay, thank you. Doesn't look good, does it?
Oh, we've been in tougher spots. We'll get out of it.
What about the public?
Well, then the public should lean on BC Tel, and maybe the provincial government should go one step further than worrying about repatriation of it and take it over.
Well, maybe an angel will appear from heaven and get the parties together. And if they don't, we'll have gotten McFarlane on, I'm sure, in a short course of events to see what he has to say about Bill Clark's analysis of the situation. My thanks to Bill Clark with the Telephone Workers Union.
Thank you.
And the phones are working fine.
As far as I know, yeah.
Quality's fine this morning.
Well, they're working,
okay.
The quality ain't too good.
Next, my two friends from the Nishka Tribal Council, after the break. I got a telephone call the other day from the Nishka Tribal Council, from one of their friends in Victoria. Wanted to know why somebody like myself, who covers the province of BC fairly much like a blanket, seems to concentrate entirely on the populated areas. We do the best we can. But fortunately, here this morning, I've got Jimmy Gosnell, whom I first met a long while ago, who is the president of the Nishka Tribal Council from Nuayanch, BC. And I have with him Nelson Leeson, the executive coordinator. Even Indian tribal councils have got these fancy bureaucratic names nowadays, Nelson. And Jimmy, you want a chance to say your piece about what you regard as an invasion of your lands.
Oh, definitely.
Tell me about it, because what I know about it, you can put in the back of my pinky.
Okay, first of all, I think you know this international giant known as AMAX Mining Company.
Yes.
Yes, well, they just walked into Arley's Arms some 6 years ago, 74, commenced a study, or supposedly study, which we weren't aware of until about 6 months ago. And then they announced to us in November last year, to our council in Terrace last year, about the proposed operations,
AMAX.
AMAX, yeah. And then we discovered then that they had done a supposedly study of the inlet. This is the head of Observatory Inlet. The Observatory Inlet has 2 arms in it, Alice Arm and Hastings Arm, by your information. Since you don't know too much about British Columbia, so I may as well tell you exactly where it is.
You're not quite joking. It's 150 miles north of Prince Rupert.
It's right on about close to the Alaska border, eh? Not too far from Alaska.
And what are AMEX now? What are AMEX planning to do there?
Well, they planning to, first of all, they reopened the existing mine there, or small mine. But the point, what we're concerned about is their proposed dumping into the inlet. They're going to dump the tailings, mine tailings, into the inlet. And according to their study, they tell us that this inlet will contain the tailings. And we say it cannot. This is where the argument is. They're telling us their studies indicate that. We've looked at their studies. We've now hired 3 scientists to do an overview of that study. And they tell us that it's a very questionable study.
All right, down here on the coast, Nelson and Jimmy, we probably saw something in the paper. The AMEX, giant multinational corporation, is proposing a big mining operation in Observatory, at the head of Observatory Inlet.
That's correct.
And they're going to pour so many hundreds of millions of tons of tailings into what leads to the ocean. Is that right?
That's correct.
And we look at it and we say, oh, good. Mining stocks will go up. There'll be a lot of people who are unemployed down here will get jobs in the mine up there. Right? That's what we say.
That's what everybody else thinks, you know.
And that's what you people used to think too at one time, was it not?
Well, we have no quarrel with the operation, really. What we're quarreling about is about the tailings being dumped in a jack. If you put it this way, supposing the same mining company proposed to put the dumping in Barrett Inlet right here in Vancouver, what would you do?
Them. We'd
yeah,
stop them.
well, that's exactly what we're doing. You don't mind the operation of the mine, but it's the dumping into the inlet. The damage of the environment could be forever.
Now, what stage is this at? Have they got pollution control or environmental approval yet?
Oh, definitely.
They have?
Yes, both federal and provincial government have given their blessing to this proposed operation.
Nelson, were you people consulted at all about this, the environmental or pollution permission?
No, we weren't. As our president mentioned, in November of '79, they asked to meet with the Nishka Tribal Council in Terrace, which we did. And we were asking them just what they were prepared to offer us in the line of employment and what have you. And they almost just shunned us away. They said, if you qualify, none of our people have mined before. And
in other words, the union membership down here would be closed to your people unless they need permit workers for casual labor up at the mine.
They didn't even offer us that.
They offered us nothing.
How many
Except
jobs?
the access to the sea, they call it, you know.
Yeah, they put a road in there and they said they'd give us access to the sea.
Were these Canadian officials of AMEX or American officials?
Well, the American, I believe, well, they're international, really. This is an international giant we're talking about, you know. They're operating all over the world, in Africa, Australia, you name it. You know.
Okay, I hate to ask the next question. I remember the Nishkas were the first people apparently to win a step in the direction to own their tribal lands. Remember when Berger acted for you?
Yes.
Did you win a decision involving the ownership of the Nishka tribal lands?
As far as we were concerned, yes, we still own the land. Our title has never been extinguished. As a matter of fact, no one has any evidence of our title being extinguished at this moment.
You never signed a treaty at any time?
No way.
Well, have you, I mean, we all had a good little giggle at the Fort Nelson band giving $5 million to the lawyer on the $100 billion settlement. That's beside the point. Are you close to a settlement? Are you going to sell the land to the federal government if they give you the money?
Not. We say the Nishka land is not for sale.
But you want money from them. What do you want the money for?
We want to be part and parcel of any operation within that land.
Would AMEX be within that land?
Oh, yes,
Well,
definitely.
they're within that land. Like we said, Lord, you take Tree Farm License number 1, Camsell, for a moment. We have no say in Camsell. We have no say in AMEX. We have no say in nothing, period.
It's on your land?
It's on our land.
Without permission?
Without permission, our permission.
And Berger supported you, or Berger got you a decision of some kind?
Well, 4-3 on a
decision, yeah.
technicality.
It was a split decision? Jimmy Gosnell, when was it we met the last time?
Oh, this was during the first hearing here in Vancouver. 1969, I believe it was. It's a Supreme Court of British Columbia.
Yeah.
You were still in the radio business.
In that wee place in the Georgia Hotel or something?
Yeah.
Jimmy Gosnell, President, Nishka Tribal Council. Nelson Leeson, Executive Coordinator. After the break. Just to show Jimmy Gosnell and Nelson Leeson I'm not entirely stupid. During the break, I did a sketch of Alice Am. Will you look at the monitor? Where's the monitor? Let's see it. How long will it take? Oh, I can't see it. I've just done this sketch and we can't show it. Will you line it up and we'll show it as soon as you can? Now, I just want to get a couple of things straight. There it is. See the sketch I did, Judy?
Yeah,
is that all right?
Close to it. Close enough, I think.
Close enough. Should be a little further north.
No, that's just about it.
Well, that's Alice Am. Are you telling me, Nelson Leeson, just to confirm what Jimmy Gosnell said, that the provincial government and the federal government gave the blessings to this giant operation without even giving a nod in your direction?
Exactly. No consultation whatsoever. No consideration. I mean, they must still think us Indians are in the 20s where we didn't care and there was enough land to pass out to people. Like, it's the area of the north they have to develop. So they're just marching in and doing it.
But what do you have to do before you have jurisdiction over the use of what you tell me, and I'm not going to call you a liar, is your land?
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to do before you can accept the clout of ownership?
Well, we're pushing the settlement, as you know. Well, this settlement is a wide thing. It'll take me days and days, really, to come to answer your question here.
But putting it very simply, you would want royalties or franchises or part of the proceeds or some of the control.
Well, everything. Everything.
You're prepared to allow development, but you want a share of the pie.
Oh, definitely, yes. If you look at our declaration, the key word in the declaration is sharing of the resources, not only of the people of British Columbia, but all of Canada, as we said. So in a way, we don't think we're unrealistic in what we're saying. We're not saying we're not kicking anybody out. We're not against any development in any way, shape, or form. But as of this moment, Jack, we have absolutely nothing, no say, no nothing in the area.
If I've known you long enough to put this to you. Has the non-Indian not given you some considerable support over the years to which we're entitled to a wee bit back?
I think lately the non-Indian, through the trade unions in the Northwest Conference, I believe it was, gave us their support. That was the first major support that we got towards our aim of settlement of the land.
Jimmy, not talking about Nishkas, but among the non-Indian in this country, and he's been here a few weeks now, he thinks to himself when he's had a few beers in the pub, and I'm talking about non-Indians, name of goodness, have we got to buy back the country? Is that a selfish, stupid thought?
Well, I don't think the new. I was under the impression that you're talking about labor unions. No. These people that you're talking about, I don't think an Indian exists in Canada, in their minds.
Maybe you're right. Yeah.
I am right.
Maybe you're right. What was I going to ask you? Oh, I was going to take a couple of calls if there was one on the topic from Prince George. That's not quite the Nishka country, but it's getting up that way. Go ahead, please.
I'm not even a carrier. I'm a Haida.
Oh, great.
Haida.
Yes, from the Queen Charlotte Islands, from Masset.
Right.
But didn't Jack just say we're going to buy back the country?
No, what I'm saying is that the guy in the pub, the man in the pub says, why should we buy back the country?
Oh, well, if they don't want to buy back the country, then they should leave. And I don't think they're going to buy back the country because they didn't buy it in the first place.
What are they going to buy back to begin with?
I should never have raised the subject. It's into too delicate an area.
That's right.
Anyway, you're with the boys on, my guests on this topic.
Yes, I know Nelson Leeson. I don't know Jimmy Gosnell, but I know Nelson.
Ooh. Oh, Nelson's just a young fella.
Yes, he is.
How old are you, Nelson?
31.
31. How old are you, Jimmy?
39.
If you don't tell me the truth about that, what else can I believe, eh? Anyway, you're younger than I am. Okay, just to sum up your problem, are you planning any instant action, or are you just going to go the long, tortuous route of nagging and negotiation?
Well, so far, Jack, our tribe has kept pretty well within the law, as you know. But as you know what the younger generation of people are today, regardless of what color their skin is. They don't give a hoot of what's going on. Sooner or later, they're going to take things in their own hands. This is what my big worry about. It's going all over the world. They don't kid yourself. This is my big worry. As far as we're concerned, we will attempt to stay within the law, the bounds of the law. At the moment, we're asking that there be public inquiry into this whole AMEX dumping of the tailings into the inlet. That's what we're asking.
Who are you asking, Bennett?
We're asking the both provincial government and the federal government that there be a public inquiry. Nothing less is what we're asking for. Now, that's not asking for the moon.
In other words, it goes in two steps. One, a public inquiry to ensure that the tailings are properly and safely disposed of. And what kind of quantity of tailings are we talking about?
100 million metric tons.
It's a mile long, a mile wide, and a mile high after 25 years. Now, you figure that out. And they tell us that's going to stay in the inlet. And we say it's going to escape the inlet. Sooner or later, it'll destroy not only Nishka traditional fishing, but commercial fishing in Area 3. Area 3, for your information, is top end of the coast in commercial fishing-wise.
One of the things is that it's really an environmental issue too.
Yeah, no, I get that.
We're worried about.
But let me give the second stage, Nelson. One is the public hearing to make sure the tailings are properly disposed of and not merely automatic permits given. The second, of course, is allied with your negotiations as to your share of the dibs, right? Two things. Next step is what then? To hear from Bennett and what's the name of the guy?
So far, they have refused us a public hearing. We're still pressing for a public hearing.
Any calls? You see? Talk about the telephone company and the phones go crazy. Mind you, there aren't that many Nishkas within easy
They don't
range
know.
of...
They don't know what's. They don't know the problem.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Yeah, these two gentlemen that they have on the show, I figure if they don't have this, they should be allowed to have the say in the whole mining progress, or the mine should not be allowed to go ahead.
Fair enough. He's with you all the way. Look, I'm grateful to you for coming down. I've done my best to explain your point of view, and perhaps I even understand it myself a little better. Who's your negotiator now with the federal government on the land claims?
Bob Yun.
Bob?
Bob Yun.
How do you spell it?
Yun.
Y-U-N?
Y-O-U-N.
Is he a...
U-N-G.
He's a recently appointed man.
Lawyer?
Yes.
Lawyer from where? Edmonton?
Calgary. He's based in Calgary. He did some work with the Alberta Association.
You won't like this question, Jimmy. It'll give me a laugh. Is he on a fee basis or a percentage?
I wouldn't know. As far as we're concerned, he was hired by the federal government, so you ask Trudeau that.
Oh, they hired him on your behalf to act as your negotiator. Fair
Hired him
enough.
for the federal government. We're negotiating on our own.
Good. You live in Terrace or New Ianch?
New Ianch.
New Ianch.
How's the housing in New Ianch? You've always been a pretty sophisticated band, but are you happy with the housing you have in New
No,
Ianch?
by all means not. As a matter of fact, I think our band council is going to ask the Department of Health to do a survey, the National Health, of course, to do a survey to see how many houses in New Ianch meets the Canadian standard. That's what we're going to do.
How many do you think meet the Canadian standards?
Probably about 10%.
You've got running water. Silly question, but I must ask it.
Yes.
Electricity,
Yes.
but very low standard housing.
Right.
Sewage, yeah, we have sewage and all that. But when you talk about standards in housing, you got to really know what you're talking about. So we're going to ask the National Health and Welfare people to do the survey. And then we'll know where we're at.
I'm very grateful to James Gosnell, President of the Nishka Tribal Council, and Nelson Leeson, the Executive Coordinator. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you,
next,
Dick.
next. Just a minute. Next, Jess Sakore of CAIMAW, after the break.
Air is all I need. He's right. Even on dirt this tough, when we test Era against powder, Era cleans better all by itself.
Hi, hon. Great job. Pants, collars, really clean. See, you did need all my things.
All I used was Era.
Come on, what about that grease?
It's clean.
Eric cleaned all this?
All by itself. I guess you found a new detergent.
I guess you found a new job.
Era cleans it.
All by itself.
On Ryan's Hope.
Tom died because you made a mistake.
We both know what'll happen to me if you...
Oh, it is none of your business what I'm gonna do. Get out of here.
Ryan's Hope.
Tomorrow on ABC.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good. Listen, can you come to the studio an hour earlier than usual tomorrow night? I've got a couple of new pupils coming in. They're going to take up most of my time.
Oh, sure, I'll be there. Listen, talking about schedules, I won't be able to make it Thursday night.
Why not? It's your night off.
I know, I have something to do.
Another dinner party at the Cavanaughs?
Gavin, I've been working really hard lately. I mean, you ought to know that.
Yeah, I know you have. Okay, so we won't work Thursday night. It's a shame. That's when you have me all to yourself. We get a lot accomplished those nights.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. You're right, you need to relax once in a while. Tell me, are the Carrs invited to this dinner party?
I didn't say it was a...
I was very glad to see the Globe and Mail pick up the story we developed on the Webster show last week. First of all, from what's his name? Dennis McDermott of the Canadian Labour Congress, and later from Louis Laberge about the ultimatum laid down to the building trades unions. If they don't get back pay per capita and stop trying to steal jurisdiction, my phrasing, from other unions, there's going to be a head-on confrontation with some raiding by the Quebec Federation of Labour and perhaps even on the coast here by separately chartered CLC unions. In the course of that interview, however, a man called Kent Rowley, whom I've interviewed a couple of times in the past, who was Secretary-Treasurer of the Canadian Confederation, the Confederation of Canadian Unions, was kicked in the teeth by Louis Laberge. And I'd like you to see, if you can stand it, just a short clip from the Louis Laberge interview to make my next guest. I thought it was going to be rolling now. Don't have it yet. Louis Laberge said on the... They have it. Let's see the clip from the program so that it makes sense to Succamore, Webster, and the viewers, because Succamore's here to try and correct Louis Laberge. And we'll see that clip from the program of the other day, any moment now.
Mr. Laberge, familiar with the CCU?
The what?
The CCU.
What's that?
Confederation of Canadian Unions?
Oh, yes, yes. Madeleine Parent?
Pardon me?
He's talking about Kent Rowley's.
Kent Rowley's.
Kent Rowley.
We kicked them out of Quebec many years ago.
Did you hear that?
CCU.
Yeah,
we kicked them out of Quebec many years ago. They were in the textile industry.
Why did you kick them out?
Because they kept people on strike in order to support the second front demanded by the Russian, rather than work for the benefit of the members. And I know I was involved. We had a bitter fight, and we finally were successful in kicking them out.
I gather you did.
And if they're here in BC, you're welcome to keep them.
Thank you very much. That's what I call a forthright answer. Well, they are here in BC. Kent Rowley is now dead. He used to be Secretary-Treasurer of the Confederation of Canadian Unions. And Jess Sakore, who heads up CAIMAW, Canadian Association of Mechanical, Industrial and Allied Workers, which is a breakaway from the CLC, correct?
Well, it was a breakaway from CLC unions.
It was a breakaway from the CLC unions. You object very strongly to what my friend Little Louis said about Kent Rowley. Although I remember well the battle within the Canadian Union movement involving the right wing and the left wing, and the CCU was widely regarded in the West here as a kind of commie front organization at one time.
Well, the CCU only came into being in 1969, so Laberge was full of hot air as far as that was concerned. But the real thing that upsets me is the fact that Laberge makes statements about why Rowley was, in his phrase, kicked out of Quebec. The reasons he gives for that, of course, are entirely inaccurate, and they're covered historically in various books on the trade union movement, including the book that's recently published on Rowley's life.
You might be able to show the cover of that book in a minute or two. Now, Kent Rowley, though, what is accurate in what Laberge said, though? Was Rowley kicked out of the labour movement in Quebec by Laberge, and if so, when and why?
He wasn't kicked out by Laberge at all. What he was kicked out is by the American bosses of that union.
Which union was that?
That was the Textile Workers Union of America. Kent Rowley was the Canadian director of that union, and I might add he built that union along with his wife and other activists then in the labour movement. They built from scratch a union here that was part of that Textile Workers Union of America. and then a strike in 1952 in Valleyfield, Quebec against the Dominion Textile Council.
Nothing to do with the Second Front.
Nothing at all to do with that at all. It was a fight for wages and conditions, atrocious conditions that were in the textile field at that time.
In the Quebec sweatshops.
Sure. And what happened was that the secretary of that union, a fellow called Lloyd Clennert, coming to Canada from the United States, done a deal with Blair Gordon, the head of the Dominion Textile Company, and signed what Rowley's term said was a yellow dog agreement. It was a worse agreement than the workers had when they went out on strike. And what Rowley was given the option of signing that, because, you know, they still need their lackeys in the colonies here to sign the agreements in this country, and he said, sign that agreement. And Rowley looked at it and he said, I won't sign that agreement. It's a yellow dog agreement. And he said, if you don't sign that, you're fired. So Rowley refused to sign the agreement. And Rowley and all his staff were fired.
By the American international official.
Who were later found by the McClellan Commission, I think, to be a bunch of bandits for stealing union funds and all that. But then Laberge tries to put a new twist on that, as to say that he run Rowley out of there, where Laberge couldn't run nothing out of nowhere.
All right, I've got the point, and I'm inclined to accept almost everything you've said. Because at that time, the certain international unions were very hot with the old trusteeship and freezing the bank accounts, not only in Quebec, but in British Columbia.
They still do it.
They haven't done it lately in BC, a couple of years ago.
They've done it recently in BC, just in the Labourers' Union a short while ago.
I would just want to get the picture clear, though, and I'm agreeing with you on the fact that Rowley was pushed out by the American bosses of the Textile Workers' Union.
Yeah, and then they said afterwards that it was because he was a communist, and like he said quite clearly, had he signed the Yellow Dog Agreement, he wouldn't have been a communist.
Now, if I were to interpret a Yellow Dog Agreement, I remember one that was signed here with local affiliations. A Yellow Dog Agreement is an agreement, roughly speaking, which has got a maximum wage but no minimum wage.
Well, it could
That's
be,
one
but
way,
that's one of the things that can be covered by it. But the other one is, it was an agreement worked out behind the backs of the workers without any input from the workers or those people elected to the stage. It was done by the hierarchy of the union with the employers behind the backs of the workers.
All right, for students of the or casual observers of the labour movement, let's establish one other thing. We now have Laberge, Quebec Federation of Labour within the CLC, right? And we've got McDermott, who's putting the boots, or trying to put the boots, to the building trades unions in Quebec, particularly, correct?
Well, I wouldn't say it's exactly that. What they're trying to do is get their tithe from the bureaucrats in the United States who have cut off their finances, their per capita payments to the CLC for various reasons.
Do you support this move by McDermott, if necessary, to charter locals, although you're not in the CLC, to enlist the building, what he calls dissident building trades members, to break up any stranglehold by international unions?
Yes, I think it would be a positive move. We had a conference on the weekend where we passed a resolution calling upon the construction workers in Canada to seize this opportunity to declare their independence from the United States headquarters.
You are, of course, McDermott makes noises about it, but you are, of course, totally against the American type of international craft union, which has power to control a Canadian end of a union.
Not just the craft union, the industrial ones as well. I mean, the biggest union, American union operating in Canada is the Steelworkers Union. And I mean, and they conduct anti-Canadian activity all the time. In the last 3 years, they've supported legislation in the United States before the International Trade Commission that would have been detrimental to the Canadian members here.
Yeah, but surely, Jess, you wouldn't try and tell me that the Steelworkers Union in Canada doesn't have physical autonomy within the country to run its own strikes.
Of course they don't.
Oh, come on.
No, well, let's look at that. You know, it's okay to say that. How many instances are you aware? You just read what you need in the newspapers and Steelworker Press Report.
Oh, Mahoney was a good contact of mine for 20 years.
I know. What a bandit he was, in my opinion. He didn't say a bloody thing when he was the Canadian director, when the steelworkers supported the Burke-Hartke legislation back in the 1974-75.
Oh, that's right. They tended to stay away from the international implications of American legislation.
They not only they didn't stay away from it. They were in there with bells on. As a matter of fact, the international president of the Steelworkers Union at that time, I.W. Abel, was the person that presented the brief to the Ways and Means Committee, to our good old friend Wilbur Mills, Fanny Fox fame.
Sure, but you're way back in American politics.
But wait a minute, this is only just back 5 or 6 years, When you brought Mahoney up, I didn't. And the international president of the steelworkers was also the president of the Industrial Union Department of the FFL-CIO, and they presented the Burke-Hartley legislation to the Ways and Means Committee. And when asked specifically if there was any exemptions they were seeking, they said no.
Not Canadian exemption?
No.
Okay, next question. CAIMAW itself was formed by raiding the steelworkers?
No.
No?
The steelworkers started raiding us in 1969.
You're in
4 years after
When
we'd
was
been set
CAIMAW
up.
formed?
The CAIMAW was formed in 1964 in Winnipeg as a breakaway from the Molders Union. And out here, if you may remember, it was on your show once back about 1966, 67, in that little pokey hole you had up in Georgia Street, Georgia Hotel or something. And we were a breakaway from the IBEW, Local 213, after as a result of the Lenkert
Which
strike.
I remembered welcoming at the time.
Yes, and a lot of other people did too.
And I play all sides of the fence to provoke people like you and the building trade unions and the rest of it.
I don't mind being provoked.
I am happy, however, we disagree on the politics of the Steelworkers Union, but I am happy to correct the record on Laberge talking about Rowley being kicked out because of the second front.
That's correct.
And pointing out the fact that Rowley, if he did one good thing, was he told the international textiles workers to go jump in the lake.
Exactly.
My thanks to Jess Sakore.
Thank you.
I don't think we're liable to anybody.
Terrible, isn't it?
After the break. What a noisy morning up to now. And you know, this sometimes can be a very pleasant and interesting show, without ranting, raving and screaming, as it will be now. On my left, I present to you Susan Yeates, who smokes a pipe. Show us the pipe, Susan. Give a wee suck at the pipe. Come on, a wee suck at the pipe. Shot a grizzly bear, ate it, and caught trichinosis. You gotta be joking.
No, that was last fall. And I was in at a camp on the 60 mile, about 65 miles from my nearest neighbor.
Keep us in suspense for a moment. Here is Captain, is it Dick or Richard?
Dick.
Stevenson, from New Brunswick?
Right.
Where have you lived for the past 23 years?
In the Yukon.
Why do you wear the skipper's cap?
I've got a 40-passenger tour boat up in Dawson. We take people up and down the river, short tours.
Steaden-wheeler?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
A riverboat?
A riverboat.
Gambling on it?
Not officially.
How many votes did you get when you ran for alderman in Dawson City last year?
13.
How many?
13.
How many did the winner get?
I believe it was 80-something.
What was the famous contest that you invented?
Contest or drink?
Well, let's skip the drink. It's too early in the morning. The Miss Nude Dawson City contest?
Yes, I had the first nude beauty contest north of the 60th parallel.
How many years did it run?
Just the one.
Why did you cancel it in the second year?
I was warned by the RCMP not to do it again. I was investigated the first time.
I have a much better line here. Invented the Miss Nude Dawson City contest and then called it off the next year due to mosquitoes.
Yes.
That's a good line. Now, back to the camp on mile 60, was it?
Yeah, 60.
Okay, tell me the story. How old are you, first of all, Susan?
27. 28 in a couple of weeks.
And you're from?
Originally from Fisherville, Ontario.
How long have you been up in Dawson City?
Well, about 7 years I've been hanging around, in and out.
In and out?
Yeah, I ran 3 years consecutive on a trap line.
By yourself?
Well, I was married for a time, but I've been by myself for about 3 years now.
What were you trapping?
Oh, lynx and wolf are your big money. Of course, the price is down now. But there's beaver and otter and fisher and lots of fur up there.
Okay. Don't tell me about the pipe. Tell me about what happened on mile 60.
Well, I was at a mining camp and I was to be their winter watchman, which the job just entailed sitting there through the winter doing exactly what I like to do. And there's a four-wheel drive vehicle road in the summer, but it's not maintained all winter. So I was 65 miles from Dawson, and that's where my nearest neighbor was, accessible only by helicopter, and having a great time doing lots of cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. But I ran into trouble. I had a refrigerator outside my cabin door. Of course, I was using wood heat and kerosene lamp, but I'd moved this refrigerator out to use as a storage box. was after the time when I had to worry about bears, so I wasn't. I was using it, putting my cheese in it and stuff. And one morning I came out and my refrigerator was pulled out from the wall about 12 feet, and the door was busted off and the top hinge broken completely. And the only thing that was left of the inside green plastic shelves was itsy-titsy pieces of green plastic everywhere. So I slept through them that first night, pretty good at sleeping through, so I made ready for them the second night. And I heard this clang, clang, clang on my stovepipe. Well, the only thing that could clang like that, I knew would be my stovepipe, and it went out the wall instead of the roof at about 5 feet high, about 3 feet over from the door. So I jumped up and I grabbed my rifle, which was a .30-30, something that the miners, quote, thought I could handle. Real good for shooting fox and maybe a wolf, but it was all I had anyway. And I looked out the door and there was nothing there. It was pitch black and I couldn't see anything. The more I stared, the more I couldn't see anything. And I knew I could almost hear something breathing, but there was nothing there, so I relaxed for a minute. I looked up in the air and I could see a bunch of stars in the horizon. I thought, how come with that many stars up there I can't see anything? And they're just silhouetted below the stars was 2 great big bear ears. Well, I didn't even poke my gun out because I didn't want to tickle him in the chin, so I jumped back and let him have it, and my bear fell down. I tried to reload another shell into the chamber and the gun jammed. So I jumped in behind the wall and I closed the door, wooden, just tissue paper compared to the refrigerator when he tore apart the night before. But he came back the second time. I finally got my gun reloaded. I jumped back out around. He was about 6 feet away from me, down on all fours, and I could see his ears up in the blackness. Then his head snapped down. I knew he was ready to charge, so I lowered my gun. And that shot, I got him. That first shot, been 2 lucky shots. If I'd been at any distance, I'd never even slowed him down with that caliber rifle. But the first shot went in under the chin, and that bullet lodged in his brain. So that was probably a killing shot, the first one, but I didn't realize because he'd come back the second time. And the second time, I got him in the ear, and it went down the spinal cord and lodged right between his shoulder blades at his backbone. So I thought that once his bones are buried and mine were walking around, that was that. But I got a fever, and I was in fever for about 3 days.
How big was he?
He was 7 foot 4 inches from the nose to the base of the tail, 7 foot 3 inches from claw to claw across the shoulder. Of course, a big hump in the back puts extra width on the grizzly bear, and he was real nice, your traditional silver tip, which is black fur inside, and the end of the fur is tipped in silver. So from a distance, they do look kind of silver. And he weighed, I guessed his weight around 700 pounds. Now, from what I'm reading about a bear that size, he should have weighed around 850. He was a big male grizzly, and he turned out to be 21 years old, one of the oldest bears on record in the territory. And that's why I got the trichinosis, because usually the trichinosis is a little parasite worm, and it's usually killed by raising it to a temperature of 375 degrees for a half hour. But in this case, the parasite gets coated thicker and thicker with a calcium coating. And usually it's killed by cooking the meat real well. But with this 21-year-old grizzly, the parasite was so thickly coated in calcium, the doctor told me I would have had to incinerate the meat before I'd ever got through to that parasite.
And you got
I got trichinosis, yeah.
So we'd have to cook you at 375 degrees for half an hour in a hot oven to make sure you're all right.
And if anybody eats me now, I'm just as deadly as a grizzly bear is.
You are delightful. What a life to lead.
I love it.
Well, you know, look at me sitting here in a fancy suit. No touch with reality at all. You going to stay up there?
You bet. You bet. I like it.
You get something better than a 30-30?
I do now.
After the break. If Captain Stevenson will forgive me for just a moment, we must get the end of that story. It was pitch black. You're standing outside with this chintzy little 30-30. You slap a second shot into the grizzly bear. What did you do after that? Once he dropped then?
Yeah. Well, I went back in the house and reloaded just in case. When I came back out, he was laying down. He'd curled forward, but he was still about 3 feet high. I patted him, jumped back.
How tall are you?
About 5 foot 1.5, and he would have stood between 9.5 and 10 feet when he was standing on.
Standing
2
up
feet.
straight. Did you have a radio in this camp?
Well, I didn't have, but I got one working. And got out.
Oh, you just fixed the radio?
Yeah, I wiggled on the wires and stuff and just kept transmitting, even though nobody was answering me.
And what did you
But
tell
somebody picked me up on the Bering Sea, a fishing boat, relayed back to Dawson, finally to the RCMP, who got me out of there. And
Did they fly in with a helicopter?
yep.
And meanwhile, you'd already opened up the bear.
Oh yeah, I'd opened him up, I'd skinned him, I'd butchered him, I had all his steaks packaged. It was about 3 weeks later when I got ill.
Oh, but when did they take you out?
In end of November.
Oh, I see. It wasn't the next day you got the radio working.
No.
Took you out at the end of November, and you brought your trichinosis. Would it just be the steaks that had trichinosis?
Everything.
Right through the body?
Yep.
Like eating a 21-year-old pig?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm right, am I not?
Yeah, exactly. It's just in pig and in baron and walrus.
Well, remind me not to eat any walrus.
Okay, I'll remind you.
What was the name of the mining company?
Kogassa.
Gosnell Mining Company.
Yep.
And you'd be in there just to watch keep the camp?
Yep.
What could you do to watch keep a camp? Oh,
Yeah,
keep the heat on?
As long as they're willing to pay me while I'm there, it was good. But I wasn't as well prepared as I should have been, so I wouldn't do it again. Not with Kogassa.
No, but not with a 30-30 either.
Not with the 30-30. That was one of the problems.
And you've got to have a radio that works.
Really, another problem.
Mind you, when the bear was at the door, it wouldn't have been much point radioing for help in the middle of the night.
Oh, of course not.
From 60 miles from Dawson City. Okay, you whetted my appetite. Tell me, oh no, who was on your crew summer before last on, what's the name of your ship?
Yukon Yukon River Tours.
Who would I know that was on your crew?
Peggy Ann Burton, if you know her.
One of Pierre's daughters?
One of Pierre's daughters.
What was she doing in the boat?
First mate.
Any good?
Oh, yeah, she was one of my better first mates.
Because he's coming in here Friday, I think.
I'd like to meet him. I know him pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah. He's a remarkably nice fellow. Amazing. Don't always like him, but he's a remarkably nice fellow. Now, you whetted my appetite about the drink. What happened? What's the drink that you're going to boast about?
It started, Dennis Bell was one of the co-discoverers of it. Don Swatsky, myself, and Dennis Bell. It was on the 17th of August in 1973. We were sitting in the El Dorado bar. There wasn't too much news, so we thought we'd create some.
Where is this? El Dorado?
In Dawson City.
In Dawson City, yeah.
It's sort of a takeoff of Robert Service's iceworm cocktail. He had this piece of spaghetti with red ink spots for eyes and a Condas Englishman. John Brown, a hunter of great renown, the way it goes. They're drinking this. They called it an iceworm cocktail. So we decided to make a real one. We dropped a dehydrated human big toe in a beer glass full of champagne, and you drink the champagne. You're not supposed to swallow the toe, though. And,
did anybody swallow the toe?
Yes, this summer.
A tourist?
No, he was a placer miner, and he's from Langley, B.C.
Don't give his name, please. But a placer miner from Langley, B.C. Leave his name off. And did you have this concoction on permanent display?
Oh yes, it sat in the toe itself sat in a jar full of salt in the El Dorado, and incidentally, it was number 725. We drank it.
And every time the drink was missed, you put the champagne in the glass, add the toe to be at the bottom of the glass?
Mm-hmm.
And was this guy a little careless in how he finished the drink?
He was a wee bit loaded that night. He fell off his chair a couple of times while I was drinking it, and finally fell over backwards and hit the floor, gulped, and swallowed the toe. Oh yes, Pierre Burton has also drank this famous drink. Warren Allman.
Warren Allman, Pierre Burton.
Peggy Ann Burton.
Peggy Ann Burton.
Mrs. Burton.
Yep.
You people are quite weird.
At least she didn't get trichinosis from drinking the toe.
No, she got trichinosis from eating the bear. Well, I don't know. How long have you been up there? 23 years?
23 years, 24 years actually. 23 consecutive winters. I was down in Vancouver for a while last winter. I liked it, so I'm back again this winter.
Oh, you're getting soft now?
Getting a little bit soft.
How old did you say you were, Nick? Dick?
About 29.
About 29. You've been up there 23 years.
Yep.
Not a gold miner, though.
Yes, I got 54 miles of placer ground staked right now.
Selling stock in it?
So I've got another project where we're selling a little bit of stock in. The placer mines, it isn't more selling stocks, you just put it out on leases or lays.
Oh, yeah.
Bit of cash down and 10% off the top out of the sluice boxes in gold.
Lots of it there.
Yes, it's the price is the difference. We're just at the beginning of our second gold rush now. There's more placer claims staked up there in the last 3 years than ever was in 98, 1900.
No wonder with gold at $714 an ounce, that was the price yesterday.
Yes, 8 something Canadian.
Oh, that's American, of course, $714.
Right. Add 15%.
Well, you certainly are a character. Now, back to the trapping. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm doing a little bit of prospecting. I'm working as a captain on Dick's boat, and I'm down here to write my navigation ticket this fall.
Your river navigation or your deep sea navigation?
Well, it's inland waters.
Inland water navigation.
Yeah.
So that you can pilot the ship. Where do you take this? What do you call it?
Yukon Loo.
Yukon Loo.
It's on the Yukon River. It's the same waters that all the big paddle wheelers were once on. And now, of course, there's none of them left running. There's only one that's really been maintained, and it's dry docked at Dawson for the tourists. And so we're one of the few paddle wheelers on the river.
What about going back to trapping?
I enjoy it, yeah.
Tell me about your life on a trap line. What would that entail? Where would you be based for that?
Well, my base camp's at Bell Creek, 18 miles upriver from Dawson. And I do my trapping a little easier than most people because I have a cabin or a tent camp about 7 miles apart, strung all the way around my line. Most people, when they go out on their line, which might be 2-week or 3-week track, they just sleep on a bearskin, but I'm not quite that tough.
So you have
I have cabins that I go to along my line.
This is winter time, of course.
Yeah, by dog team.
Would I dare ask you what kind of traps you use?
Well, I'm a big one for snares, because you get just the animal you want and he's immediately strangled. If you get accidentally a dog in your trap, they don't fight it, and so all you have to do is release them. And as far as I'm concerned, especially in the settled areas, I think it's going to have to come down to snares.
Instead of that?
Instead of the leg hold trap.
The leg hold trap, which is cruel.
Well, it is or it isn't, but as far as I'm concerned,
certainly painful.
It can be.
Because it'll take the foot off.
Yeah, it can be.
A wolf would take its foot off in the trap, wouldn't it?
The only time when a leg hold trap is painful or causes trouble is when somebody doesn't know how to use it. If a lynx trap is used for a lynx, you'll never break a foot. But if a lynx gets in a wolf trap, you're going to break a foot, etc. And it's usually somebody that's making an incorrect set. They're using bait.
Where did you learn this?
Picked it up.
From old trappers?
Yeah, mostly when you can get them talking.
And also by the trial and experience.
Yeah, I threw a lynx.
Do you regard yourself as tough, Suzanne?
No, I don't want to be anything called tough. I've known too many people, and their definition of tough is not knowing any affection. And as far as I am, I'm in love with everything.
But you're physically tough.
And
you're outdoor wise.
I get along, yep.
I think you're magnificent, Suzanne. And you too. Don't make another of these drinks. I certainly hope you don't come across another toe. My thanks to Captain Stevenson and to the incredible, incomparable Suzanne Yeates, spelled Y-E-A-T-E-S, right? After the break.